Someone had asked about putting a gold finish on fondant without using alcohol because a lot of people use vodka as the base. That's kind of the most common thing. These food paints are rated edible in some countries. They're not technically edible in the United States. They just haven't gone through the FDA approval process. But these don't have alcohol in them. If you just read the labels, you might be able to find a couple different brands that are rated as edible where you live. This is rainbow dust. But there's no alcohol in this, so you could just use that. But if you want to use just regular gold dust and some water, and again, this isn't rated as edible. This is non-toxic. Just add a little bit of water. You want to use as little water as you have to, because the thicker this is, the less water is in it, and the less chance that you're going to melt your fondant. If you put a really wet coat of something onto fondant, it's going to soak into the fondant and make it soft. So just add a little bit at a time. You can always add more. If it gets really thin, just add some more gold dust, or pearl, or whatever you're using. And also, again, if you're going to paint this on a cake that somebody's actually going to eat, you should use something that's labeled edible. So don't make sure that you're not using something that's not for food use. That's fine for gum paste because nobody's going to eat that. All right, so this is the water. Well, that's very thick. But see, putting it on thicker, I think the vodka was thin, but that works just as well. You don't have to use the vodka. You don't have to use the alcohol. And see the shine on both? So that they both work. You're just going to have to be careful that when you use the water, you give it time to dry without touching the cake, because if you put this on a cake and then start touching it before it's completely dry, it's going to leave fingerprints and it's going to be hard to fix. Another thing you can do is paint the whole cake and then go back and dust it over with a dried brush as soon as it's completely dry. Don't do it too soon, because if it's wet, you're just going to gum it up. But you can dry dust it, and that'll kind of cover up any little gaps that you have. But see, the water gives a good shine. This is the water, and this is the vodka. They both give you a good shine, so you can use them. You can use the pearl dust or the gold dust or metallics with water, no problem. Okay, so you want to elevate the cake so that the fondant, like the bottom edge, is available to you. If it's sitting right on the board, it might be harder to put the gold leaf on it. I just take a little wet paper towel, it's damp, it's not drippy, and kind of dampen the fondant where the gold leaf is going to go. Make sure it's nice and damp. I'm going to dampen the little ditch there that I made. And I just covered this fondant, so it's pretty soft still. If you want to just let it sit and let the fondant kind of harden up a little bit, that might be easier to work with. Here's my dry towel. Alright, the type of gold leaf that I'm using are transfer sheets. Transfer sheets are stuck to the transfer paper. The gold leaf isn't loose. If you get loose sheets, you have to be really careful because they're going to fly everywhere. And these are actually stuck to the paper, as you can see. They're not going to go anywhere. So they're pretty solid on there. What you do is you take it, make sure that the whole area that you're going to cover and a little bit more is covered. And you don't want to waste too much of this, so try to get the bottom edge as close to the bottom edge of the cake as you can. Just put that right on there, rub it gently, and it should stick to the fondant if it's damp. And you can see there's like a little piece right here that's kind of cracked. That's okay. You just want to make sure that the gold leaf is going to stick. And pull it down this way. And when you lift this up, it should come right off. I'm going to press it down as much as I can. See how that's coming off? And curve it that way. It'll stick to itself, it'll stick to the cake, it'll stick to everything. Right here at this point, you can see that it's not stuck to the cake. But I'm just going to lift this up and then bring it back down so that it covers that curve. Alright. Yeah, it's not sticking there. As you're pulling it off, make sure that it's actually adhering itself to the cake. Very gently pull it off. Just go slow, there's no rush. And if you see a little piece that's not sticking, go back and rub it a little bit more. Okay.
Now you see this little chunk didn't come off, so just take the paper, kind of put it back on there. It might not have been damp enough. Now see, now it doesn't want to stay. So I'm going to take the paper towel, kind of dampen it a little bit. Make sure my hands are dry because you don't want it to stick to your hand. And just do your best to go back and cover that piece. All right, and you know, as you're doing this, you're going to have little pieces that are extra that don't go on. And you can go back later and cover it with another piece of gold leaf or just like a little extra bit. So like this little extra bit didn't come off. So you can kind of go back and try to fill that in. I think this is where it didn't come off. Sometimes when you do that though, it's going to pull more gold leaf off of the cake. So you have to decide whether it's worth it or not. So you use a huge piece, just make little pieces, try to fill in. That'll usually work better. Now once you fill in the whole thing, I'll go around to this. You can take gold luster dust that's dissolved in vodka and go in and just kind of touch up little tiny holes. And it's not going to look exactly the same, but it'll be enough to give the illusion that the whole thing is covered. If you do have little tiny pieces, like right here, I don't know if you can see, that was where the little crack was on the paper, and right now it's not completely covered. But you can go back and fill that in, or just leave it. A lot of times if you're using this kind of effect, you're putting flowers or something on it, so the flower could be covering something like that. And the other thing I wanted to show you is the dent. So here's the dent. That's the dent that I had made, and you can see that you can see it. So really make sure when you're covering a cake with gold leaf that the fondant is very smooth, because it's very reflective, and any dents are going to make even more obvious because of the shadows in it. So make sure that it's really smooth to begin with. Just cover that, and then you're going to turn the cake, work your way around. Try not to pull this off. Get as close. When you do the next sheet, kind of overlap it. Well, let me see if I've got another little one. I know, I think I used it up. We'll just go through, do the whole thing, overlap it, and go all the way around. And like I said, you're going to have some extra pieces left over that are stuck to the sheets, and you can go back and touch those up, or just go in with the gold luster dust later and fill it. And that's really about it. It's not difficult once you get the hang of it. It's just an expensive medium, so make sure that you try one piece before you try to do a whole cake, and make sure that you charge for it, because it will really take a dent out of your profits.